I'm just up here so I can take off my mask. Ricky, Coach, Popeye, Uncle, Brother, Pops, Son, Godfather, Papa. He was known by many names. For the next 2 hours that I'm up here and I take you down memory lane, let's just call him Rick. It's not 2 hours. I have compiled some memories that people have gave me, and if it's okay, I'd like to share them with you. One thing that was a big part of Rick's life was baseball. His sister, my Aunt Lori, shared with me how her and Rick would always go with their grandpa Foral to baseball games at Rosenblatt, whether it was for the College World Series or for minor league baseball. Every half inning, Rick would ask his grandpa for some money. One inning, he would come back with popcorn. The next inning, he would return with a hot dog. For sure, each game, he would have a chocolate malt. Aunt Laura would never get to have anything because Uncle Rick took all the money from Grandpa. But she still enjoyed going to the games with them. There were also trips to Chicago to watch the Cubs and usually Cardinals play. His niece Mariana tells a story about the time she was walking to work, she lived in Chicago at the time, and saw Rick sitting in a dive bar with some of his buddies hours before the game even started. I'm sure there were some stories on those trips that we can tell outside of church. I remember seeing Rick on WGN one time, standing in the bleachers, going after a home run ball. He had a beer in his hand and his shirt was off, but sometimes that could be hard to tell whether he was wearing a shirt or not. There were also trips to New York to watch the Yankees play. His brother-in-law, Dwayne, shared how cool it was that on one of those trips, they went to Ellis Island, and on the way back, they both just stared and watched the skyline of New York City from the boat that they were on. Continuing with baseball, it was also part of his life as he coached Mike and Pat and Colleen in softball. The kids didn't know how he found time to do it, but he did. Pat shared with me that he must have thrown over 10,000 pitches to Rick in their yard. Pat thought that Rick had to stop playing catch with him because Pat was throwing too much heat as he got older. But I'm guessing it was probably the 1,000 balls that Rick took off the chest because they're in the dirt, right? Okay. But even after taking all those pitches off the chest, he never complained. That was one thing about Rick. He never complained. Even with the hand he was dealt at the end, never complained. Actually, the only time I remember him ever complaining over a hand that he was dealt while we were at Platte State Park. He was trying to bluff his niece Jody over there out of some chips when his nephew Jamie chimed in. Surprised, I know, Jamie chimed in. Jamie said, no, call him. Well, she did, and she beat him. And that was a time where you heard a few choice words coming out of Rick's mouth. Maybe it was payback for Jamie's experience at his 50th birthday party. Inside family joke, ask us later. Traveling was also part of Rick's life. This usually involved traveling to some type of sporting event. My wife and I, Allie, were fortunate enough to meet up with Rick and the kids down in Jacksonville at the Gator Bowl. It was one of the few times the Huskers actually won a bowl game in the past 15 to 20 years. Mike also told me about the story, how Rick took him to watch Duke play at an NCAA basketball game in Louisville, Kentucky. Now, for those of you that don't remember, they used to play a basketball tournament every March. All the colleges would get together. It was a pretty neat experience. I don't know if they'll ever do them again. Well, Mike was heartbroken because Duke missed an easy layup at the end of that game to get bounced from the tournament. During that trip, 12-year-old Mike also had the talk with Rick over some pasta. So even though Mike had two horrible experiences during that trip, he still had a great time bonding with his dad. He would also travel to Lincoln often with Colleen to visit Colleen at her sorority. Now, this is where I was going to insert a sorority joke, but I'm going to give you a pass tonight, okay? All right. They were able to participate in many father-daughter events, but he told her the only reason he came down there was because he thought the house mom was cute. As we heard, Rick had many jobs in his life. He worked as a mailman. He did something at Disney. All I know is that I was able to go to Disneyland 3 times by the time I was 11. So I thought my uncle had a cool job, even though I don't know what he did there. Plus, it was always nice getting Disney toys and clothes from him at Christmas time. I'm sure they're on discount, but it's the thought that counts. Some people here might also be wearing a Mickey Mouse tie clasp that he gave people a few years ago, and it's a pretty treasured gift for those of us that still have it. He also worked at the Furniture Mart. Show of hands if you took advantage of the family discount that was offered. Quite a few of you. Very good. And for those of you with bad credit, where's Jake? Hand up, Jake. Yep. He was able to help out with some financing stuff as well, so that, we appreciated that. He also worked at a couple of the arenas to make a few extra bucks, but if Mike and Jenna ever needed him to watch Landon, he'd cancel that shift every single time. That's how important his family was to him. Rick also had many friends that ranged from kids he grew up with and with him, that he went to school with, and that he worked with. Some of his oldest friends called him Popeye, like we heard. And it wasn't because he looked like the cartoon character, but because he drove like Popeye Doyle from the movie The French Connection. For you young kids, YouTube The French Connection car chase, and that you'll understand what they're referring to with that nickname. These friends could also get Rick in trouble. Now, I was too young to attend the bachelor party in California, but he lost one of his contacts somehow at the bachelor party. Again, I wasn't there, but the stories I've heard, it was similar to the John Candy wrestling clip from the movie Stripes. So if you want to know how that happened, go ahead and watch that. Rick would also talk about his best friend, Jim. You know who you are, Jim. I think I also have to talk a little bit about Uncle Rick's faith. Grandma told me how Uncle Rick would serve 5:30 Mass almost every morning at St. Agnes, and how she would walk there with him. Father McCamey always appreciated help with Mass, I was told. Rick would be at church every Sunday, but he was usually unsuccessful in getting his children to go. Mike and Pat shared a story with me how they lied once about how they were coming here for 5 o'clock Mass. They had this great plan because they parked the car in the parking lot and they went to a nearby restaurant instead. See, it was college football season, so, there's some games on TV they wanted to watch. Well, the plan was foolproof, except they forgot to come back and get the car. So when Rick drove by at 6:30 and saw only one car left in the parking lot, he figured out what was going on. They said that was not a phone call they recall very fondly. Being the oldest sibling, am I good on time? Are we okay? Okay, all right. Being the oldest sibling, Rick realized early on the importance of family. Now, science has proven beyond a reasonable doubt that the oldest sibling is always the best one. Right, Mike? It's science. And Rick lived up to that expectation with his brothers and sisters. His brother, my Uncle Joe, recalls fondly as a youngster that there was a time when he saw on the news that the New York Giants lost a football game. Uncle Joe said out loud, "Ha ha, the Giants lost." And for some reason, shortly after that, Rick pushed him into the wall, causing a dent that is still there today. His sister Annie, my mom, would visit Rick as often as she could these last few months. He would always say thank you to everyone who visited, and would also thank the nurses, even if they had just given him a shot. As my mom would leave each time, she would tell him, "See you in the morning," and each time he would reply, "Thanks for the warning." Uncle Tom said Rick was only mad at him one time that he could recall. That was after a Nebraska football game. Uncle Tom thought it would be easy to find the bus in a parking lot full of buses. Well, he was the last one on the bus. We were all waiting for him. We were all ready to go, but Uncle Rick was a little not happy, we'll just say, with Uncle Tom. And I got here to know alcohol may have been a factor too. So, for those of you that are aware of the famous Foral Sunday dinners, Rick would call back every Sunday when he was living in California to talk to anyone who wanted to talk with him. Once he came back to Omaha, he occupied a spot in the corner of the table. It was his spot and no one else's, and that will always be his spot. I just can't believe he wanted to sit by my mom all those years. He was generous in his gift giving for birthdays and holidays. He would also buy Grandma little knickknacks and doodads over the years. One of them that is still front and center at our house is a Last Supper display, and it sits there still to this day on the dining room table. We don't know how he did it, but Rick could pick the perfect birthday card for everyone in the family. They were usually inappropriate, but always had a lot of truth in them. For me, I know I will miss the $100 he would put in my birthday card every year. Adding it up after all these years, that's about $3,500 that he gave me. Thank you, Uncle Rick. He was proud of everything that he did and was a part of, especially his immediate family. He was always there for you guys. Whether he was comforting Colleen after a breakup, sorry, Colton, not talking about you, giving Pat and Amanda some home improvement advice, or helping out with Landon, he was always there for you guys. Jenna would tell me how at family events, Rick would be more interested in spending time with Landon. He would actually encourage everyone to go do something else so he could watch Landon, so he could just be with him. He was always more excited to be with Landon than everybody else. In Rick's final hours, Mike, Pat, and Colleen were there with him. Rick's last smile was when he was told that his kids were going to spend the night with him. He knew that they were there, and they could tell that he was trying to say the words, "I love you," even though he couldn't. But you guys knew he loved you. As Rick took his final breath, Jenna was at home with Landon and Everett. Landon was sleeping, and Everett was on the couch, safely on the couch. As she was putting dishes away, she saw a gleam of light by where Everett was laying. It only lasted a few seconds, and when she checked on Everett, everything was fine. You see, Rick never got the chance to hold Everett because of the virus. He was there that night to say hello to Everett, as well as goodbye. I guarantee you, though, those two boys, they had the best guardian angel ever. Rick, we're going to miss you, but we know you're watching over us all. I hope you're enjoying. In heaven, there is no beer with Grandpa. Give the big guy a hug from all of us. And for heaven's sake, if there is beer in heaven, drink something other than Miller Lite.